Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in so far. This is InsigmaTheory here, bringing to you the games for tonight to the After Hours Gaming League. Tonight, we're going to have IGN versus Zynga. Now, this is a weighted best of three to see who gets into the playoffs, and I think IGN already has the advantage. So it is going to be, if IGN wins this game, they get to go on into the playoffs and keep going further in the After Hours Gaming League. If, however, Zynga turns around, wins this game and the next one, they will absolutely be going on as well. So the picks and bans have started, and wow, they're flying through. Lux, Kale, Shen banned out for Zynga. Meanwhile, Aurelia, Pantheon, and Leona banned out on the side of IGN. Let's see here. Cuban D and going to pick up Malphite for that first pick. It looks like it's going to be a Malphite jungle, but we could absolutely see top lane there. They could trade that one out, or even could go mid lane. But on top of that, Baron and Nick Allen going to pick up Caitlyn and Nidalee for IGN. Bogatog and Frito locking in Jace and Lulu. On the side of Zynga, Miri and Sweetie Pinkie Pie going to be locking in Anivia and Cho'Gath. So an interesting pick there. That is going to be a Cho'Gath jungle. It's not something we've seen a lot recently, especially. He's usually been kind of stuck in the mid lane or in the top lane even. I mean, he's been more focused on the mid lane because of how much sustain he has. But, you know, in the new jungle, he's actually not all that bad. But anyway, so we're going to see Ezreal and Rumble locked in for Zynga, last two picks. And then it looks like Taric being hovered over. Yeah, Taric's going to be locked in as well onto IGN. So that is definitely going to be a Malphite jungle. That's not switching around. And so that is going to put Rumble at top lane. Actually, they could switch that out and send a lot of these champions in a lot of different lanes, especially all of the side on Zynga. I mean, they could actually, theoretically, they could send a Jace in a 1v2 lane, or they could even send a Rumble in a 1v2 lane. And they could completely switch the lanes around. So we might actually see something of that come out for tonight's game. Meanwhile, it looks like IGN is going for really, really strong lane presence. Nidalee is definitely one of those champions you pick when you want to win your lane. It's extremely hard, let's put it this way, it's extremely hard as Nidalee to lose your lane if you're playing her right. If you know how to play a Nidalee well, you're pretty much not going to lose to anyone outright, really. But kind of the strength that comes from that, or the weakness that comes from that, is that she's going to be a little bit behind when it comes to those team fights. But the fact that she's taking teleport, or Nick Allen's taking teleport onto Nidalee, means that he's going to be able to split push with her a lot. And it means that he should be able to have sort of huge map control just by being Nidalee, just by being in that top lane. And they could, well, I would say that they could actually switch that out and maybe send Nidalee 1v2 bot. But I imagine she might have a little bit of trouble with the harass from both Lulu and Ezreal. Now, Zynga picked up a very, very harass-heavy team. They've actually got a lot of poke here. They've got Jace. He has his shock blast with that gate. It's a lot of poke. And then on top of that, Lulu with her glitter lance and the mystic shot from Ezreal, as well as his ultimate. That's a lot of ranged damage. Now, on the side of IGN, if we're taking this out, Nidalee has a little bit of poke. I mean, if she's going to be going AD Nidalee, she's going to kind of not have that strength of the AP spears that do a whole lot of damage. But they do have a little bit with that. She's got a lot more harass in lane, as well as Caitlyn's got a lot more harass in lane. So it looks like they might actually have the right composition for turning around fights on that poke, because they've got a lot of engage between Anivia walls, between Cho knockup, Taric stun, and even say Caitlyn trap. They could, they've got a good composition to handle out the poke that Zynga has. So just taking a look from the picks across the board, it's a pretty even game. No one really has any of those sort of flavor of the month, really OP champions that you might see being picked out a lot more. Nidalee's kind of on that top side. and then Lulu is a bit strong as well. But I mean, it's all what these teams are focusing on are for the team fights. They're focusing for the team-wide strategy, and this is exactly what I want to see, especially in leagues like the After Hours Gaming League. Like, let's put this out there: these players are not professional players that you would see, say, in the LCS, but what they are is a bunch of people that have a passion for the game, that work at companies like IGN or Zynga or Microsoft or Amazon, that said, you know what, our company has a softball team, why not have a League of Legends team? And that's exactly where we are with the After Hours Gaming League. So it's really awesome to see players like this actually focus more on the team-wide aspects and focus more on actually using compositions that work as a fives team, rather than just going, let's all pick what's good in solo queue and work off of that. So we are getting into the game here pretty quickly as soon as this one loads up. And that was exciting there from XSplit. Was glitching out a bit there, but that should be fixed. And the game's going to load up for Zynga versus IGN. Now, I just want to remind everyone that, again, this is a weighted best of 3. Zynga has to win the next 2 games to go on for the playoffs, or to go on to the playoffs. Whereas if IGN really only needs 1 win, even if, say, IGN loses this game and they go on to another game, they go on to that game 3, they still have that advantage of they have that 1 game lead. So they have 2 chances here. And that might actually work out in their favor. This is something I was talking about a little bit earlier with pressure. I mean, when it comes down to it, Zynga's under a lot of pressure here. They can't really afford a loss in either one of these, but IGN can kind of say, you know what, whatever we did last game, it obviously wasn't going to work. Maybe we can turn something around in the next one. Let's just clear our heads and get through it. Zynga doesn't really have that chance. They don't really have that luxury, and maybe we'll see something turn around from there. Zynga might be the type of team that turns around and says, you know what, it's not a big deal. We can win these 2 games. So it's gonna be pretty interesting. But the game's about to start here for the 2 teams of Zynga versus IGN. And let's just go through the picks pretty quickly here once again. We are going to see in the top lane for Zynga, we're going to see, it looks like possibly Jace or Rumble. I mean, they could send Jace mid lane. I don't know. It could be either way, especially since they're on the blue side. Either one can trade this out. So it looks like it's actually going to be Rumble. I would assume it's going to be Rumble. Anyways, Rumble and Jace picked for IGN. Or Zynga, my bad. So Rumble, Jace, Ezreal, Lulu, and Malphite picked out for Zynga. Meanwhile, over on IGN, we've got Baron picking up Caitlyn, and Nidalee being picked by Nick Allen. And there we go. So we can introduce the players. Yeah, so there's Caitlyn on Baron. Baron playing Caitlyn. Nick Allen playing the top lane. Nidalee, it looks like. Miri being that mid lane AP and Nivea. Cho'Gath being played by Sweet Pinkie Pie in the jungle. And then Ask Joshi playing the Taric support in the bottom lane. So it looks like pings are going out across the map. And they are kind of setting up here. They might be going for an invade, it looks like. There are wards going down inside of the enemy jungle. But everyone is heading down from IGN, heading towards the bottom lane. And it looks like Zynga's actually done a pretty good job of setting a wall across the map. They're going to be able to see every single one of these entrances and check if an invade is happening. So they are going to spot the Cho'Gath. The Rupture comes down trying to land onto someone. I believe they saw him there in that bush, as that does reveal.
30 seconds until
the Rupture does give vision inside of it, but it looks like they're not going to be able to pick anyone up just yet. And bottom lane for Zynga is just going to head straight towards it and just say, you know what, you might have our red buff. We're not going to fight this one out without our entire team on the side. But it looks like IGN's going to turn around and just take their own blue buff on that one. And they might actually, this might actually turn around, because we could see from Zynga, they could actually say, hey, you know, we're going to lose our red buff. Let's go for the enemy red after the blue. We'll see how this one turns out. But it looks like, yeah, so they are going to be sending Nidalee up in the top lane. No lane swaps happening from the side of IGN, and it looks like Zynga's going to be having a pretty standard lane setup too. And they are going to be sending Jace mid lane. Yeah, he's checking that bush just to make sure that nobody's in it. But a pretty standard start from both teams. Nothing really happening just yet. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that Caitlyn did start out with a Doran's Blade, and that is going to be a pretty big deal if he can get out, or if he can get out the advantage early on. Having that extra damage from a Doran's Blade, as well as that extra health, is going to mean that he's going to do a little bit more damage in trades. The only really big deal, though, is that with Ezreal, and he has a longsword, the Mystic Shot might be able to pull him ahead on this one, but it's going to be kind of one of those crucial points to see where Caitlyn turns this around. I mean, buying an early Doran's Blade is kind of like saying, you know what, we're going to be behind a little bit later on, but we're going to use this to an advantage now. So hopefully Baron can use some form of advantage with that Doran's Blade, and Lulu goes up to ward, causing Caitlyn and Taric to kind of push forward and make sure that that Ezreal doesn't get any farm. Meanwhile, up at the top lane, Rumble actually started out with a red elixir, it looks like, so he's going for an early advantage as well. And Nidalee just started out with the standard crystalline flask and potion, so she's going for a sustain onto this side. Caitlyn here doing a lot of damage onto Ezreal, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier with the Doran's Blade. You do want to go for really, really heavy early harass onto that one. Ezreal cannot get close without taking a lot of damage. He's already burned a potion at that, but there it is. Lulu turning around with a little bit of harass into the bottom side. Meanwhile, up at mid lane, Anivia here having a little bit of trouble with the push coming out from Jace. Let's see here, 11 CS onto Anivia to 13 on Jace, doing a really good job. At bottom lane, Lulu actually gets completely focused down. First blood goes into IGN for the kill. And Ezreal's taking a little bit of harass too, burning another potion onto this side. He actually gets hit by the Piltover. He's extremely low. Baron's doing a lot of harass. Gets hit by one turret shot. I think this is going to be enough for him to not go forward anymore. Ezreal looks like he's going to stick around a little bit, though. This could be bad for him, as they might be level 3, but it's still probably an early dive. But he goes forward, he lands out of the Arcane Flux with the flash on Ezreal, Arcane Shift. So he's actually able to evade that one. Really good shot there by Ezreal. Burning a flash from Taric, and there it is. But looks like, yeah, so it looks like IGN's bottom lane starting to get a little bit of an advantage. And now Ezreal is kind of stuck in lane with only 200 health and nothing to really kind of get him back into it. He doesn't have any lifesteal from like a Doran's Blade yet. And he doesn't have any potions. Meanwhile, Lulu doesn't really have a heal on this one, so he could be in a bad spot, dodging another Piltover, and it looks like Lulu's going in for a bit of a fight here. Ezreal goes forward once again. The stun goes down, lands on top of him. Caitlyn's going to pick up one more kill into the bottom lane, tries to flash over the wall, but it's just a little bit too short. And Cuban D is going to pick up a kill onto Caitlyn. 2 kills for IGN right now, and it looks like 1 for Zynga. Both happening in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, Josh, he's still here in the bottom lane, kind of keeping the pressure onto Lulu while she clears it out. Back up at mid, Anivia's having a bit of trouble. Now, Anivia doesn't gain her really strong laning presence until about level 6, especially against someone like Jace, who turns out to be really, really strong, especially in the Doran's, especially in the early levels. Because he is going to be able to push, and she's not going to be able to farm all that well. Yeah, see, she can hardly keep up with the tower. And it's all based on just her champion's kit. I mean, without level 6, without the ultimate from Anivia, she's gonna have a lot of trouble. And his top lane, Cho'Gath setting up for a gank onto Rumble. Rumble has to flash out of the Rupture, and that is a successful gank there for IGN, popping the flash onto the top lane. Now we are probably gonna see Cho'Gath turn around and go right for another gank up at top. But the threat might be just enough to hold this one off. Meanwhile, Anivia is still in the mid lane. Now, he does have the Crystalline Flask. He has two uses of it just now. So he's going to be able to stay here for quite some time. Now that Anivia is level 6, we might see something turn around into the lane. He's just going to stay pretty passive, as that even though Anivia is now level 6 and is going to start to deal a lot of damage from her ult, as well as the passive on her E, it's just Jace is still going to be able to put up a lot of the fight. But again, this is where actually a lot of these champions are going to start to really change the way things going, especially up here in the top too. With Nidalee, now that she's level 6, the game kind of takes a turn here. Nidalee now kind of has the mobility and the fight here, but meanwhile, bottom lane, Ezreal once again going in on top of Caitlyn. AHGL going to be down there at the bottom and exhausting the Lulu. Ezreal taking a lot of damage though. Lulu turns around with really low health as well, dodging the Piltover, and they're going to stay alive in this bottom lane. Meanwhile, Malphite came down for a gank on the bottom side, and Ezreal's sticking around, trying to dodge these Piltovers. Taking a lot of harass though, but I mean, looking across the map, Caitlyn's at 51 CS and Ezreal's at 24. IGN has a huge lead in this bottom lane, and a lot of it comes from that early Doran's Blade with that heavy harass in these lanes. The minute Lulu left lane to ward and left Ezreal alone in the bottom lane, really gave up full control across this bottom side. Taric was able to just kind of get into the bush, and just by being there is enough of a threat. Ezreal taking a huge hit from that ace in the hole. And Baron here turns around and takes a little bit of harass from Lulu. He's going to return the favor though. Lands another Piltover onto Ezreal. He's just taking hits back and forth. Meanwhile, up at the top though, another gank is coming down. Rumble actually survives out of this one, and Malphite's set up here up top as well. Malphite's still not level 6 though, so we can't use that unstoppable force to force anything just yet. Bogatog heading up at the same time. Tries to land a shot from behind the wall. And back and forth, this kind of trading. As Joshi goes in for a flash stun. Caitlyn's not quite there to respond with it just yet. Now that should be a little bit of a relief for Ezreal. Knowing that Taric's flash is down, that should be a little bit of a relief, but he's taking a lot of harass, and he's not really able to kind of keep up with it. He's down at the bottom, the ult comes out from Ezreal. Exhaust goes down on top of Baron, that's just enough for Ezreal to pick up one kill into the bottom lane. Teleport's coming out from Nidalee towards the bottom side. AHGL taking a ton of damage. Lulu pops the ultimate onto Ezreal just to keep him alive long enough. He does use the cleanse to try to get out, and it's not quite enough with a Nidalee spear to pick up the kill into the bottom lane. So they did trade out one kill for one in the bottom. They traded the Ezreal for the Caitlyn, but that is a pretty big pickup there for Nidalee, as they are going to be able to push down this bottom lane. And now that Cho'Gath up at the top kind of relieved the pressure there, Zynga is kind of getting stuck onto the back foot. Take a look at the gold. Take a look at the gold advantage. 13,300 gold for IGN to 11,700 on the side of Zynga. First tower now has gone down in the bottom side, as well as first blood did go to Caitlyn for IGN. So they got a pretty substantial lead down there in the bottom lane. And not only can you see that in the gold, but you can see it in the items. Caitlyn now has a BF sword and a pickaxe, so she's really going straight for that Infinity Edge, as she's pretty much able to. Meanwhile in the mid lane, Anivia is actually starting to push at a pretty decent rate, and Jace is kind of stuck. Neither of them have tried to make anything really big happen just yet, is they got to be really careful. They both have the opportunity to actually kind of blow each other up. I mean, they both have the kit for it. Jace is extremely strong at that, especially with a poke. And Anivia can turn around and really force the fights to go in her favor. Up at the top, though, Caitlyn is going for a gank onto Rumble. He pops his ult down to try to slow him down. Ace in the hole comes out. Zolaf health gets really low, but the shield is just enough. He might be able to make it away. He's got 40 health. He flashes away from the spear, and he makes it out alive on the top side. Meanwhile, Bogatog might get caught out here. Spear doing quite a bit of damage, but he's going to be able to run away with the extra movement speed here from his ultimate. And IGN up at the top, putting the pressure onto it. Down at the bottom, Ezreal and Lulu turning around, putting the pressure on as well. And they look like they might be trading these towers out. Cuban D is the only one up at top lane, trying to holding this one up. But it looks like actually Nick Allen in the top lane is actually going AP Nidalee rather than AD. Kind of something we've seen a lot lately, especially because of what Voyboy did at LCS. It's actually starting to turn around and be quite a bit stronger. The reason it wasn't nearly as strong before is mostly because of sustain, because of the champions that were really good against Nidalee in the top lane were really burst-heavy champions, and now it's kind of turning around that there's more items for the AP carry that work out for the Nidalee up top. But it looks like spears are actually going to start to hurt pretty bad into the game. And they might be going for that poke route as well. So back at mid lane, Anivia came back with a Catalyst, the Protector, as well as the first level of Boots of Speed. Ping goes down on blue buff, and Anivia's going to get her first blue buff at 12 minutes and 45 seconds into the game. And this could be a chance for Anivia to start to shine. Running an Anivia mid lane without blue buff really puts her behind. She's one of the most blue-reliant champions in the blue-reliant mid lanes in the entire game, I gotta say. So getting it this late, we might actually start to see some plays come out from the mid lane, but we'll see how that one turns around in just a minute. Meanwhile, down at the bottom, Malphite's setting up for a gank here into this bottom lane. Baron here might actually be overextending. Cuban wastes no time with that unstoppable force, goes right in for a little bit of damage. Ezreal just cannot hit a shot onto Caitlyn. She's able to juke every single one of them, but it turns around with the Q there, the seismic shard from Malphite. It's just enough for Malphite to pick up the kill onto Caitlyn. Looks like they're going to turn around. Zynga's going to get Dragon number 1 unless something here happens from IGN. Anivia comes in to join the fight. Started to unload a little bit of damage onto Jace. They're kind of trading hits back and forth, but IGN actually does that very well and holds off the Dragon there from Zynga. Now that was a 4v2, so they might have been able to force something, but you got to remember that the side of Zynga did not have the Malphite ult, and they weren't all full health. Anivia is very popular for being one of those champions that can absolutely kind of hold these fights out and actually do well in sort of unfavorable matchups. You know, running a 2v4 fight, Anivia can zone somebody out with a wall, zone somebody out with a stun, and that's really all you need to kind of turn these around. And I think Zynga was aware of that, so they got to be really careful. But kind of everyone just pushing up the lanes and putting pressure onto it. 3 kills to 3, 15 minutes into the game, and it looks like IGN's going to turn around and probably take the Dragon here. Now, the jungler is not here from IGN, so they might be able to do something about this. Ezreal ult comes out, does quite a bit of damage. Taric is getting really low as well. Jace hops right on top of Taric on a Cupcake ward, and Ezreal actually steals the Dragon. It looks like they're going to pick up another kill onto this one. 5 kills to 3. There for Zynga, actually starting to take a little bit of a lead, or closing that gap. It's 19,000 gold to 19,400 on IGN. That was extremely well played there by Zynga, holding that Dragon off and turning around and actually stealing it from Ezreal. That's kind of one of those things you got to be really careful of when you take Dragon without your jungler. Not having the smite is a really big deal. And that's kind of proof of it there, but Zynga actually closed in the gap with just that last fight. And Nidalee up at the top lane, pressuring really hard, doing what Nidalee is extremely good at. She might be able to make it out alive onto this one. Rumble's going to pop the ulti just fast enough for it to slow Nidalee down, but the flash and the pounce is just too quick. And it doesn't look like Rumble's going to pick up a kill there in the top lane. We are back at mid. Jace gets hit by the stun on Anivia, and Caitlyn's here to do some pressure. Now, Caitlyn still has not finished her Infinity Edge just yet. Actually, taking a look, the lead that Caitlyn had is kind of all but gone now. She is back at mid, but she's really only got 100 CS and allowed Ezreal to get back up to just a little 10 under So they are starting to kind of lose that lead into the bottom lane, but the poke comes out from IGN. Ace in the hole lands on top of Jace. It's just enough to keep him away, but they don't quite have the team set up just yet to siege onto this turret while they're all kind of low. It looks like the whole teams are set up for a 5v5 in the mid lane. Lulu actually gets hit by a spear there after getting stuck on a trap. It's quite a lot of damage. It's something they got to worry about. Rumble actually blocked the spear on top of Lulu, doing a really good job keeping Lulu alive. But this is kind of where you got to be worried. Going up against a Nidalee lane, you kind of do not want to be stuck on a siege middle lane where Nidalee can just toss spears and really zone you out. But it looks like mid lane is going to go down. That is 3 turrets advantage for IGN. They have taken mid, bottom, and top. All of the outer turrets are down, so that's a really, really big gap there. The only really big deal, though, is that the gold gap isn't nearly as much because of what's been going on with Dragon. Picking up that Dragon kill really evened the gap, and then having everybody be able to farm up and kind of even the CS gap is just enough to kind of keep that one back as well. So Zynga's doing a pretty good job keeping up a fight here. And they do have a team that can turn these fights around between Jace and Ezreal for a lot of poke and a lot of damage, as well as Malphite to really, really control the flow of fights with just his ult alone. That could actually be a bit of an issue for IGN if they're not careful. But they do have one of the best wave clearing teams I've seen in a long time, especially between Cho'Gath and Anivia. You can kind of keep these things out for hours. But mid lane is going to go down, and that is going to be the first tower for Zynga in the mid lane, keeping the gold gap pretty close. Once again, just only 400 gold difference between the two teams. 18 minutes into the game, 5 kills to 3 in favor of Zynga. A pretty even game so far, but this is exactly... and yeah, Nidalee up at the top lane really putting the pressure on, but this is exactly what Nidalee does. She keeps having someone on your team kind of separate up, and that's her entire job really, is to sort of force fights to go 4v4 or 5v4 if she can make it there in time, especially now that she has teleport too. But that's really her entire job. She's doing it quite well, but taking a look across the map, let's actually take stock, as nothing quite is happening just yet. 95 CS on Rumble to 101, so the top lanes there from both teams are actually pretty even on both sides. Nidalee, though, has actually picked up a needlessly large rod and a blasting wand, so she's working away towards her death cap very quickly. Meanwhile, Rumble really only has this Haunting Guise and the level 2 boots going for magic penetration over it. So we might see something pop out there from Rumble just yet. He could go for his Rylai's next up, or he might just finish off that Liandry's. We'll see where he goes with that one. But he's got about 1,100 gold in the bank. Ace in the hole comes out from Caitlyn, trying to dissuade Rumble from sticking around, and that's going to be just enough to keep him out of there. But the gold gap is now completely even, 25,000 to 25,000 for both teams. And yeah, so down in the bottom lane, Ezreal and Lulu are going to be able to take this bottom lane turret and sort of get Zynga the small advantages that they need. And this is really what they need to do. They need to take just tiny little things that they can take and back off. They need to get, let's just pick up 1 kill here, or let's farm these minion waves and kind of get the advantage there. Or in this case, let's just take this tower and then back off. Let's get the global gold. Let's get that out of the way and then not worry about it later. But you've got Taric and Caitlyn up in the top, really doing work onto this top lane tower. He might stick around a little bit too long. The stun comes out onto Rumble. The shock blast comes out from Jace. It's a little bit too behind, and they're not going to be doing any poke just onto it. But Caitlyn here is getting pretty low on mana. And they're going to turn around and just kind of keep the minion wave at their own turret. Meanwhile, you've got Anivia and Cho'Gath in the mid lane, putting up a lot of pressure there. And this is kind of where both teams are at. They don't really want to make anything big happen. They don't really want to force plays or force fights, because they know that instantly another team can turn it around. It's not so much about who gets the fight out first and who gets the first hit. It's all about positioning in these fights, and they got to be really, really careful, because if they're not absolutely precise, they can turn it around pretty quickly, and both teams can on top of that. But top lane, Caitlyn here taking a lot of damage from Rumble and Jace. She actually flashes out and pops the cleanse, so it's not going to be able to pick up from the ignite, but it's just not quite enough. Jace is going to get a kill onto that one, and meanwhile at the mid lane, Lulu getting picked off by Cho'Gath and Anivia, and Jace is not quite going to get the kill onto Tarek up at the top. But they did trade out 2 kills for 1. They did lose out on Caitlyn. Caitlyn did go down, but let's see here, Lulu and Rumble went down as well. So that's not entirely bad. It's always better to take 0 deaths over any amount of kills, I gotta say. But it looks like here, looks like IGN might be able to pick up another dragon. Ult comes out from Ezreal, and Anivia is going to pick up the kill on the dragon. That was almost perfectly timed, though. Ezreal should have been able to steal that one, but it was just a little bit too off. So it looks like IGN is going to get actually the lead back from that dragon alone. 29,800 on IGN to 28,900. So they are getting a 1,000 gold lead, and that's not really all that big. I mean, if we take it into account, it's not like an entire item's worth of a lead. But if that was on one person, that would be the difference between saying building the Archangel staff versus just having the pieces for it, and that could make quite a bit of a difference now that Anivia has the Archangels to really start to stack on the mana and the ability power a little bit early on. So they're going to be going for that late game poke, and Nidalee picked up her death cap as well. Meanwhile, Rumble actually bought out a Giant's Belt and the blasting one, so he's going out for his Rylai's now. He's going for the survivability more often than damage, and that's pretty much where he needs to be. Down at the bottom, Ezreal has bought his Bloodthirster, and he went straight for a static Shiv. Outside of that one, I wouldn't be surprised to see either a Frozen Mallet come out, or maybe even the Glacial Gauntlet. We might actually see the Blade of the Ruined King come out after that one as well, but I gotta imagine the Blade of the Ruined King on top of the Bloodthirster might be a little bit, might not be enough of what exactly he needs. We could actually see a Last Whisper as well. There's a lot of different paths here that Ezreal can go, and it would be a little bit surprising to see what happens here. But Baron and Josh might get caught out in the bottom side. Lulu actually backed out from holding this one off. The Shock Blast comes out, doing a little bit of damage to Tarek there. And Anivia and Cho'Gath are actually going to turn around and push up this mid lane pretty hard. So Baron and Josh actually escaping from that gank in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, Nick Allen up at the top just kind of taking turrets. And there's not much that Zynga can really do about it. They've got to send people, you know, they've got to have everyone in every lane. They can't really kind of group up and make plays happen, because if they do, they're going to end up losing all of their turrets. But Josh, sticking in the back, just trying to hold off and make sure Caitlyn stays alive. He actually turns around and just completely pops in and says, you know what, Caitlyn we're not both going to make it out alive onto this one. Just take me instead. And it looks like Zynga took the bait onto that one. They picked up Tarek there, but now that the teams are 5v4, I'm wondering if Zynga are able to maybe force something to happen here. Everyone is kind of stuck in their own lanes, trying to relieve the pressure that they're taking from IGN. They're still kind of stuck on the back foot. I mean, it's not a huge lead. If we take a look, just on the gold count alone, it's still really only 1,000 gold lead. But it's not really that much. It's all just about the pressure. Between Nidalee and Anivia, you're pretty much always going to have those two lanes constantly pushed, and you have to worry about it. You can't really force something, because you're going to lose a tower somewhere. And Zynga's not really capitalizing on top of that one, but Jace comes up here up top for the gank. He actually could get caught out in this bush alone. The Rupture comes down on top of him. He gets completely focused out. Cho'Gath is just going to pop the ult and clear this one out. And they're going to pick up a kill on to Jace. Meanwhile, Caitlyn and Tarek are headed down here towards the bottom, putting up pressure pretty hard, forcing the bottom lane from Zynga to actually come down. That turret is about half health, though, and Malphite is heading down. He does have his ult, but they're just going to head out of here. Try to get out of this one. Josh once again goes forward and tries to stun this one out. Malphite might actually land something here. He flashes forward, hits the ult on top of Baron. Ezreal didn't quite hit him, but that's just enough damage for them to pick up one kill bottom lane onto the Caitlyn. Meanwhile, Josh here could get stuck out. He's got the flash coming forward from Ezreal. He stuns out on top of Ezreal just in time to slow this down, but the Glitter Lance lands, and Lulu is able to pick up the kill on the bottom lane for Taric, putting the kill score. I was trying to go for kill count there, and I was trying to go for kill score at the same time. Kill scout. I think this is going to be the new word for tonight. Scout. That's totally a word. Look that up in the dictionary. I challenge you. 9 kills to 6 from Zynga to IGN. 35,600 to 36,600. So it's still a 1,000 gold lead on the side of IGN. But it's, again, I mean, they're kind of just trading back and forth. You know, in one place, IGN might take a lead, and then Zynga might turn around and say, you know what? You took that one, we're going to take this one. And it's just going back and forth, and nothing really big is happening. They're picking up kills here and there, but no one can really capitalize it. It's not that these teams just aren't capitalizing on kills. It's that Zynga are getting kills into the bottom lane or into the top lane. They're just picking off people here and there. The problem is that all 3 lanes are pushed up to the turret, and you've always got someone on one of your second turrets, and you don't want to lose them. These are kind of the big posts now. Yeah, your outer turrets are gone, but if you lose any one of these inner turrets, like, yeah, see, this top lane inner turret is completely gone. So this entire topside jungle now pretty much belongs to IGN, but it looks like Rumble's going to turn around, split push up at the top, take one of the turrets up there, and IGN's going down bottom lane, does a lot of damage onto Lulu, gets hit by one of the spears and the ult from Cho'Gath. Jace turns around and actually starts to unload onto it, but a wall actually completely separates us out. And IGN here, able to pick up a kill into the bottom side on Lulu, and they're just going to take the red buff as well. Meanwhile, up at the top, though, Rumble here is pushing pretty hard, and Nidalee does have her teleport, so she might be able to stop something here. But all 5 members of IGN are at the bottom. Ace in the hole comes out on top of Jace. Unstoppable Force going to turn around and stop Anivia from picking up the kill there. And Jace is actually going to make it out alive, but the spear comes out, hits Ezreal. He's now down to 200 health just from that one spear. It actually did something close to about 800 damage just from that. And they now actually cannot do much here. They're really stuck in kind of a bad position. It's not where you want to be, especially against something like an AP Nidalee. You do not want to be hit by those spears. They're just absolutely monstrous. But it looks like IGT is just going to pick up another dragon here, put in the lead into their favor once again. But it is going to be 41,400 for IGN to 38,500. So that's two dragons for IGN, and only one on the side of Zynga. Meanwhile, they really only have the outer turrets and actually just the outer turrets there. So that is 5 turrets to 3. And IGN's just doing a pretty good job of holding these objectives. Now, what Zynga does have going for them is that they're actually keeping up in CS. So not only, it's pretty much only that they're just losing the objectives, and that's really the only big goal difference in the 2 teams. Because Zynga's actually doing a pretty good job of keeping up in CS, they're actually staying relevant. It's not completely one-sided in these fights. They have the ability to kind of turn these fights around. It's just a matter of if they can kind of position themselves right and not get caught out. So we could actually see something happen there, but back at the mid lane, they're just kind of clearing things out. And Nivea getting her blue buff once again. And Nivea actually came back with a needlessly large rod, so Miri's going for a death cap afterwards from the rabbit or the Archangel staff. So that's actually going to start to stack up really quickly here. We're going to start seeing Anivia blow up in terms of ability power. Meanwhile, though, Nidalee picked up the Void Staff, and that 1 Q was enough to take Lulu down to about half health. But she does have the Locket, the Iron Solari, so she's got a little bit of tankiness and a little bit of sustain coming out on this side. But poke coming out from both teams, just trying to whittle each other down. Nick Allen just trying to land the spear here and there, but the Shock Blast comes out from Jace as well. I don't think they're going to be able to hold this one off. A Rupture comes out, stopping the team from holding this turret, and they're going to pick up mid lane. And it looks like they're just going to back out. They're going to take small advantages where they can get them and just head on out. So there it is. They did pick that up, but Rumble actually turned around, and oh, Frito extremely low from another spear from Nidalee. But Rumble actually picked up his Leandry's Torment over the the Rylai's just now. Caitlyn on the side of IGN heading bot lane to clear this one out. They're checking the blue buff as well. Ping's going out on top of Rumble. They might catch this one out as they do have Taric and Anivia there. Flash stun comes out from Taric. It's just not quite enough as it was on the Ezreal. Now remember, Ezreal's flash, the flash that comes from his E is actually calculated before it finishes off. So even though he actually gets stunned mid-flash, it's not going to stop him from there. Flash ult comes out from Malphite, lands on top of Nidalee and Anivia. Anivia getting extremely low. Actually pops the egg as well. The spear comes out from the side. It's just not quite close enough. And I think Zynga's going to turn around and turn this into a Baron attempt, as they were able to turn this fight around. And this, remember, this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. All they need is one good fight, especially from the Malphite ult, just to completely zone somebody out. Rupture comes out from Cho'Gath, getting them pretty low. Zolaf helps, getting extremely low on this side as well. Bogota gets hit by a spear, and now they got to back out. QBD actually could get caught out here. The silence comes down as well, and they are going to pick up a kill with the ace in the hole, but Jace actually rushes back in, picks up a kill onto Taric. And Cho'Gath just forcing this one out once again. Spear comes out on top of Lulu. They are getting extremely low. And I don't know if Zynga can actually hold this one off. They're both just kind of trading back and forth. Rumble gets completely focused out here. Baron actually picks up Baron picks up Baron. Caitlyn picks up the kill on a Baron, just to clarify that one. But they were actually able to pick that one up, and he cleansed at just the right time to stop the poison from killing him. That was actually a monster play there by IGN. Holy cow! I can't go back to that phrase enough. But there it is. IGN gonna pick up a huge lead from that last fight, actually putting the gold lead into 4,500 or 4,600 gold lead now, all from that little tiny, 200 gold lead that they had earlier on. They were able to snowball it to actually this point. This could be a really bad sign for Zynga. I know that comes out as a little obvious, but remember, Zynga has the exact team that they need to actually completely turn around fights. Even though that they're behind, they do have the unstoppable force from Malphite. You can actually knock up people again after that one. If you use the Lulu ult on top of Malphite, you can keep him in the air for what, 3-4 seconds? That's more than enough time for Jace and Ezreal to pick up and pick people off. Especially Rumble too. That's a lot of area of effect damage that they have. So they could actually turn these fights around, but it's going to start to actually get a lot harder for Zynga to actually do that in these fights because of the gold lead now that IGN has. Meanwhile, 5 members from Zynga pushing up this mid lane here pretty hard. Ult comes out from Malphite on top of Anivia, but no one there to really follow this one up. So they are just going to pick up this mid lane turret and keep the pressure on, it looks like. Meanwhile, Nidalee down at the bottom. Nick Allen just pushing this one up pretty hard. He has his own Seraph's Embrace as well. But mid lane inhibitor turret getting pretty low. Nidalee has not actually teleported back here. It's still a 4v5, and Anivia is able to pick up a kill on a Malphite as the ult was burned. Ezreal comes out, but it's just between all of the members of IGN there. Rupture lands down on top of Lulu. They might pick off a kill here. The ult comes out from Taric as well as the Shatter, but it's just not quite in range. And meanwhile, Nick Allen down in the bottom lane is able to pick up the inhibitor on top of that turret. Here we go, Ask Josh. He's taking quite a bit of damage though from Jace. He's still getting ahead pretty far. He actually completely avoids the Mystic Shot there. And IGN is pushing pretty hard down this mid lane. It is 4v3, actually, so they might be able to force something to happen here, but it looks like they're just going to pull back and take the red buff. Pretty smart choice here by IGN, because now all the members of Zynga are actually going to come back up. Now they do have, since they do have the Baron buff and they do have that bottom lane inhibitor, it could actually work out in their favor. But the problem is that it would be a 5v4 there at the mid, and you don't have the Anivia, which is really what you need for these team fights. I mean, even though you've got the poke from Nidalee, and you've got, you know, Cho'Gath into the front line, who not only is extremely tanky, but actually does a decent amount of damage to actually worry about in these fights, especially with his ultimate. But you really need the Anivia for these fights. You do not want to go in without her, because she alone can really control the flow of them pretty much entirely. So Anivia turned around, rushed the Rabadon's Death Cap after the Archangel's Staff, and now it looks like she's going for a Zhonya's Hourglass next up. She's not really going for the Rod of Ages just yet. And oh, wow! Ezreal taking a huge hit from that Nidalee Spear. We actually got to take a look here. The Nidalee Spear actually does something like 600 damage at close range, and the longer the range goes out, the more damage it's gonna do. Wow. She's actually hitting really hard, and especially with that Void Staff, she's really going to work through it. But it looks like Caitlyn picked up a Frozen Mallet after the Bloodthirster, and they're just going to poke back and forth, use the ace in the hole, kind of trade this one out. And that's 4 members of IGN here in the mid lane. Baron's working away out in the tower. The flash comes out, or the net comes out, avoiding the ult there from Malphite. They know that's down now, so they gotta force something here to use this to their advantage. It's 12 kills to 11. That's in favor of Zynga, but the gold lead is widely ahead for IGN. That's 56,000 to 48,700. Cuban D actually taking a lot of damage there from Anivia. The Spear comes out, just barely missing the Rumble. Meanwhile, you've got super minions down in the bottom lane working away at your Nexus turret, and all 5 members here are mid from IGN. Knockup comes in on top of Malphite. Frito extremely low from a Spear from Nidalee, and Solaf helps, gets completely focused down as well. Everyone just getting whittled away on the side of Zynga. Actually, Caitlyn got focused down pretty hard, but she's got a pretty good chance at holding this one out. Ezreal here, the only one alive now, on to Zynga. Pretty much the fate of this game rests on his shoulders. If IGN wins this game, though, they go on towards the playoffs, and they really only need this one win. That both Nexus turrets are down. No one from Zynga's up in another 30 seconds, and it looks like IGN's gonna pick up a win here. Ezreal's gonna win off with one last kill, but IGN's gonna go off towards the playoffs for the After Hours Gaming League. Holy cow, ladies and gentlemen. This well done to both teams. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is InsigmaTheory. Thank you for tuning in so far for tonight's After Hours Gaming League match. If you want to find out where you can get more of me, just head on over to twitch.tv/InsigmaTheory and follow me there, or you can hit the social or the Twitter at InsigmaTheory, or Facebook/InsigmaTheory. I also have a YouTube.com. I bet you guessed it, youtube.com/InsigmaTheory as well. But make sure you guys check out the VODs for all of the After Hours Gaming League on youtube.com/AfterHoursGamingTV. On top of that, the actual So You Think You Can Cast competition is actually starting to work its way towards the voting here. Next week, the voting starts for all of the casters that you're seeing with the After Hours Gaming League. You can actually vote to who gets to go on and continue with more of these games to cast. The bottom 2 people that do not get voted for enough will actually get cut. So make sure you guys get in your votes for your favorite casters on the competition. So once again, thank you for tuning in. My name is InsigmaTheory. I'll see you guys next week.